This one is from Donald. I saw your video on internships. My question is why in the T doesn't have an apprenticeship program like plumbing or residency in the field like medical? Yeah, this is something that we in the United States really don't do well, to be quite honest. I'm an American. I've lived over here for most of my life. I'm 43 years old, but I have spent several years in Europe, the Middle East, and in Asia during my career. And I will tell you that most other places in the world do a much, much better job with the idea of internships, apprenticeship, and paid internships and paid apprenticeships. There are a lot of those coming in the United States right now for what we call blue collar work, welding, plumbing, electrical. And a lot of that is coming over because the US is starting to realize that what Germany was doing for the last 10 years was really good and really smart. And so we're bringing it here to the US. My son lives in South Carolina. And in his school, they have a partnership where you can go through and become a welder in your last year of high school, and they will actually pay you $20 to $25 an hour while you're going through high school to go work for a welder and learn this skill. And when you graduate high school, you have your apprenticeship done and you're ready to go make 20, 30, $40 an hour as an apprentice welder. And then you can become a master welder and make 50, 60, $100 an hour as you keep going up. I haven't seen a lot of that in the cybersecurity world yet. And I think a lot of that is because we tend to use places like the military as that, or the government jobs as that. And so you can get a job in the military with zero experience. They'll put you through school. They'll teach you for 4 years how to do your job. You'll get the experience and then you leave. Like Jamario, you did 8 to 12 years, somewhere around there, right around 10 years in the Air Force. When you joined the Air Force, you didn't have a degree in computer science. You didn't have cyber training, right? But
No.
now you do. And so
Yeah.
there's a lot of that goes on, right? Another thing you can do is military reserves. That's another way of doing it. But if you're an older person and you're not medically fit and you can't do it, or you don't want to be in the military, there are a lot less programs. I have a lot of friends with a lot of Fortune 100 companies and Fortune 500 companies, and they are trying to start doing more of these internship programs because there's such a fight over qualified, experienced people at the middle and high levels of cybersecurity. But there's a glut of people who just have Security Plus, right? Or just have SSCP or COISA, but they have no experience, and nobody's willing to give them a chance because they don't have experience. And internships is very important. I agree. Finding them can be difficult. There are a lot of unpaid internships. There are some paid internships. And then there are some paid entry level programs where they start you out very low with the expectation that hopefully you'll go higher later. I can tell you when I graduated with my master's degree, I got a letter because I graduated with a B or above average. So I got a letter from the National Security Agency saying, hey, we're interested in you coming to work for us. We'll make you a GS9 and you can come in here and work for us and get the experience so you can now become a cybersecurity expert. At that point, I already was a cybersecurity expert and I was getting the master's to up my pay. So I didn't take that job offer because for those who don't know, a GS9 is roughly around $60,000 or $70,000 a year, which is a really low salary for somebody with a master's degree. So the answer to your question, Donald, I don't know why we in the US haven't embraced this yet, but I think a lot of it just goes to the corporate culture where we like to rent our employees as opposed to buying them. If you think back to the 50s and 60s, my grandpa, when he got a job, his whole life he had three jobs. He worked for one company for 30 years, worked for another one for 10 or 15 years, and then worked for another one for a couple of years and retired. That was the traditional way of doing things. We don't do that these days, right? As an employer, I'm Jamario's boss. I hired him. He works for me. And I run my company a little differently. I don't like to turn over my employees. So I tend to hire and keep people for a long time. In fact, I've never had somebody quit on me in the 7 years I've run Dion Training. We've only had a handful of people who don't work here anymore, and there was 3 or 4 that left because we outgrew them and their skill set, and we had to go to other areas. But in general, what I see in the corporate America scape right now is I'm going to grab somebody like Jamario. He'll work for me for 12, 24, maybe 36 months, and then he's going to go somewhere else for more money. And so why should I invest in Jamario when he's going to be running away anyway? And that's a typical thing. And I think that's why you don't see a lot of these paid internships. Do you have anything to add, Jamario, on that one?
I think when it comes to the career, you really got it. I'm mostly the employee, not the employer side. I can only really speak on like the positions that I've held, but for sure, I definitely make a lot of sense with not wanting to invest because if you look at almost any type of career advice today, especially on YouTube, they're telling you, hey, go to this job. And if you move every 2, 3 years, you can get like a 15, 20% bump in pay. And I think it was Warren Buffett said from an investing standpoint, though, it's like you give me the incentive, I'll show you the outcome and you incentivize people to move, that's what they're going to do.
That's why I'm doing this. Even when internships, we do a lot of internships at Dion Training, but specifically where we're doing our internships through is the military. And the reason for that is as instructors, I need people who have experience in the real world doing cybersecurity. So somebody like Jamario who has 8 to 10 years of experience running large Air Force networks is valuable to me as an instructor, But the problem is he's also valuable to everybody who wants people to run large scale networks, right? And I can tell you, I can't afford to pay him the same as Lockheed Martin. They're a much bigger company. They've got a much bigger funded. And so Jamario actually is losing money by working for me, but we try to make it up for him in the fact that he can make his own hours. He's got more flexibility. He can work from home and all those other benefits. But that being said, we do hire a lot of interns through the DoD Skill Bridge program, which is the last 6 months that somebody's on active duty as an enlisted or officer. They can work for a civilian company to get that experience in the civilian world so they're ready to go get another job. And for us, we've had four so far who have come through the Skill Bridge program, and all four we've actually offered jobs to, and they all selected to stay with us at Dion Training. But had they not, they could have gone someplace else and probably made more money doing this IT stuff because the other companies can pay more. And so it doesn't always come down to money, but it does come down to experience. And internships are a hard one, and it really does depend where you are and where you live. The other thing I would say about internships is very few internships are online. So most of them you are going to have to do in person. And the reason for that is that's where you're going to get most of your skill, being hand to hand, side by side. As I'm working on something, you're looking over my shoulder and learning. Our company, we're all remote, so we don't do a lot of internships in person, and that is a struggle. The other thing that we are doing for internships to try to break down some of this is we do high school and college internships over the summer. They're not really well paid. They're well paid for high schoolers, but it's $15 an hour, right? For most of you listening in the States, $15 an hour is minimum wage. But instead of them working at McDonald's over the summer, they're working for us, making the same they would make at McDonald's, and they're getting skills they can use as they go into college and beyond. So that's why we do it. And so hopefully you can find something like that near you.